We're going to be talking about it this week, proposing some amendments, but I'm really disappointed out of the gate, Evan. There's lots of risky debt in the future and no plan for economic activity. In fact, it will actually hurt economic activity in some parts of the country, some sectors. We need every sector firing. We need people back to work. We need a plan to be competitive again. And this had no plan and lots of debt on our kids' shoulders.
Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, in what country does the government control what people post on the internet, what they can see, and punishes content that does not match, quote, the government's vision, closed quote? China, Russia, and soon to be Canada, because that is precisely what the Liberals' government's Bill C-10 does.
The world to get them to contribute to Canadian content in the way that traditional broadcasters do. But this amendment was put in, and you stood up when it was introduced and talked about this exclusion that was part of the bill to basically protect user-generated content, to make it so that somebody putting something up on social media would not somehow, even inadvertently, be affected by this. You touted that. And now it is gone from the bill. What changed?
Nothing. Bill C-10, as you said in your introduction, is about ensuring that web giants pay their fair share when it comes to Canadian culture, like traditional Canadian broadcasters do. It's not a bill about content moderation. The CRTC, in its more than 40 years of operation, has never moderated content that we hear on the radio, that we see on TV. The CRTC doesn't say, oh, well, this is good, this is bad. This bill is about ensuring that companies like Netflix, Spotify, but also YouTube, which is the largest distributor of music in Canada, pay their fair share when it comes to Canadian culture. That's all it is about. It has nothing to do with content moderation. And the allegations by the Conservative Party are ludicrous, and they're 100% false. It has nothing to do with reality. It is totally fabricated.
His attacks on democracy have gotten more brazen, and that's what he's trying to do by silencing Canadians online with Bill C-10. Will the Prime Minister tell us how long it will be before every aspect of Canadian life must conform to his liberal vision of Canadian society?
Are ludicrous.
But your original iteration of this bill took the step to actually put an exclusion in there so that people, user-generated content, would not be touched by this bill. And now that exclusion is gone from the current iteration. Wow. So I don't understand why it was valuable enough to put it in there before, but not valuable enough to keep it there now.
Get him out of here! Get him out of here! Get the hell out of here!
The bill is about
literal censorship and control over Canadians and their usage of the internet.
There's nothing about content moderation. User-generated content will not be
allowed by this Liberal government.
Can you imagine the CRTC?
But then why was it there in the first place? Why was it there in the first place?
Going after people posting pictures or videos of their cats. Like, imagine for 1 second
that Justin Trudeau was no longer Prime Minister of Canada.
I mean, the member of parliament who you had on the clip just before I was there talked about the fact that if it's not there, the protection doesn't exist. It's ridiculous. I mean, we have in Canada laws and regulations about freedom of speech. We have the Charter, and in fact, the bill does refer to the Charter. And every bill that is adopted by Parliament must go through an assessment by the Department of Justice, the Ministry of Justice, as to whether or not it conforms with Canadian laws and regulation, not about content moderation.
So I'm going to flip the question for a moment here, Minister, because it was important enough to put that exclusion there in the first place. Now it's gone. Why was it important in the first place to put it there?
834,100. That's the number of paychecks that are missing in Canada. It's the number of families sitting teary-eyed around the kitchen table trying to figure out how they're going to fund their future. And while the Deputy Prime Minister has congratulated Conservatives for supporting income programs for those same families, those families need jobs back in order to secure their future. With unemployment a third higher than the G7 average, when will those families have their paychecks back?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of this pandemic, we made a simple and straightforward promise to Canadians that we would have their backs, regardless of how long it took, regardless of what it took. And that's why we delivered the CERB to 8 million Canadians, even while Conservative politicians like the member from Carleton were saying we were doing too much, too fast, and, oh, you shouldn't be helping workers. You got to help businesses faster than workers. Sorry. We were there for Canadians. We continue to be there for Canadians. And we know the best way to get the economy to come roaring back is to create opportunities, and the budget will balance itself.
The Prime Minister has just said is false. In fact, his Deputy Prime Minister thanked the Conservatives for supporting that assistance. But it just shows how out of touch he is, that he thinks that families can go on living forever off a measly $2,000 check from the government. They don't have multi-million-dollar trust funds like he does. They want jobs, like workers in other countries where unemployment is significantly lower than it is here. So why is it, Mr. Speaker, that workers abroad get paychecks while ours here at home just get credit card debts?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, among others, the IMF has recognized that Canada's approach to supporting workers, to supporting businesses, to supporting communities through this pandemic has left us better positioned to come roaring back once this pandemic is over. We have
to mention that we're falling behind the rest of the world on jobs. In fact, the G7 average is 6%, the US 6.3%, the EU 7.5%. Canada, 9.4. They all have COVID too, but they're getting their jobs back. Isn't it clear that for Canadians to regain their jobs, this Prime Minister will have to lose his?